Any health-related information on the following show provides general information only. Content presented on any show by any host or guest should not be substituted for a doctor's advice. Always consult your physician before beginning any new diet, exercise, or treatment program.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Inspired and Empowered Living TV show and podcast for a thriving life and business. And we are live on Thursdays at 5 p.m. Eastern on talk4tv.com, w4wn.com, and my YouTube channel. And you can hear the podcast on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Pandora, Apple, and many more. So today we are going to be talking about creating thriving relationships in life and business. Are you ready to live an inspired and empowered life? So today we're going to be talking about how relationships shape everything. Your confidence, your energy, your success, and even your income. In this episode, we'll explore what it truly means to create thriving relationships in both your personal and professional life. And from romantic partnerships to friendships and clients, colleagues, collaborations, you'll learn how to cultivate connections rooted in respect, healthy communication, emotional safety, and aligned values. When your relationships thrive, your life and business naturally expand. So what I started doing, this is part one, we're going to be doing this series of episodes on creating thriving relationships. So during this series, you will discover the core qualities of healthy, loving, supportive relationships, how your self-worth impacts the relationships you attract, your connection between emotional safety and business success, and why boundaries are essential for both intimacy and income, how to shift draining dynamics to empowering partnerships, the role of communication in creating clarity and trust, how to identify red flags early in life and business, and practical steps to strengthen your most important relationships. Together, let's create a life you love. I'm your host, Nancy Deutsch, licensed clinical social worker, certified hypnotherapist, and intuitive business expert, combining my counseling, coaching, and intuitive abilities to transform yourself and your life. This show is not a replacement for therapy or counseling. It is for educational purposes only. So the last few shows, we were talking about the power of self-love. But I will tell you, we're going to just touch upon it some more. Because before you can build and create healthy, loving, joyful relationships in your life and business, you must build one with yourself. So I'm going to ask you some questions. Do you find yourself overgiving in your relationships? And just take note of what your answers are. Do you struggle to ask for what you need? Do you attract clients, partners, friendships that feel draining? Are you successful on the outside, but feel unsettled on the inside? And the quality of every relationship you have in your life is the quality of the relationship you have with yourself. So that is the bottom line. And you may not have answered all of those yes, but I support you in really looking at those answers and finding where those places are that you're still your learning curve. Because I'm going to tell you, relationships are our most powerful teachers, and they can be the things that really help us move forward and propel us, and they can also challenge us to the max. And I know from personal and professional experience, been there, done that on both levels. So yes, I know what it's like to have challenging relationships. And but I will say, and I am so grateful that now in my life I have manifested and created thriving relationships in my life. And of all the blessings that I have in my life, my relationships are my biggest blessing. So that is the power of relationship. So let's talk a little bit about what does a thriving relationship really mean? And Misty says, yes, for sure. She agrees, relationships. All right. So in your life, when you have emotional safety in your relationship, when there's mutual respect, there's open communication and really healthy communication and conflict resolution. Those are all part of healthy communication and open communication. So crucial for really healthy relationships. You have shared values, your ability to have joy and play together. And these relationships in your life, I'm talking about romantic, and I'm talking about friendships. I'm talking about parents and children, and just finding the way where you can bring all of these into all of your relationships, and your personal growth is encouraged. And know that in every relationship, when it's thriving, the whole of the relationship becomes more than the sum of its parts. And what happens is when you have a thriving relationship, it's like there's this synergy that happens where you go off of each other, and you can feel you become the best versions of yourself together. That's all part of thriving relationships. And what part of that is also when each person is living and moving towards their potential, when together that you function and you support each other to live your potential. So those are all parts of what happens in your life. Now, in your business, what a thriving relationship, when there's thriving relationships, there's clear expectation, there's healthy boundaries, and healthy boundaries are for all relationships, whether it's business or personal. There is a fair exchange of energy and money. There's integrity, alignment, collaboration instead of competition. And again, and again, a lot of that is in all relationships. But for business, you want to have those basic pieces to have healthy relationships that will really move you forward in your business. Excuse me. You cannot have emotional safety externally if you don't feel safe internally. And a lot of times when I'm working with clients, we're working on that internal safety. The more you feel that internal safety, and I'll give you an example. Like when you feel grounded and centered, and there's a calmness in your body, in your mind, in your spirit. There's a sense of safety. You can relax and you can feel in that moment a sense that all is well. That was a phrase Louise Hay said, and that you're feeling safe in the moment. And so, excuse me. So I'm going to share with you what happens. Like, how do you know when a relationship is not healthy and not thriving? So first, I want you all to remember that you intuitively know when there's what you call red flags. Now, a red flag it's a warning sign, and you see the warning sign, and we call it a red flag. For those of you who don't know what I mean by red flag. So being able to see the red flags and trust that you're seeing the red flags is really important in your relationships. You know, oh, this doesn't feel right, or this is wrong, or something's off. That would be a red flag, that you're feeling it, you're sensing it, you're knowing it. Trust yourself. If something feels off, it's probably off. Now, it doesn't mean that the relationship is bad or wrong or over. It all depends on what's going on, because sometimes it means that you need to do your work. And in healthy partnerships, you're both doing your work. You do your part, they do their part, and you come together with better and healthy communication. But ultimately, this is about you trusting your feelings. And also, sometimes I call it reality checks. Like, there are times where I'll go to my therapist, or I'll go to a friend or a coach, and I'll say, I just need a reality check here about this situation. So, no, that's doable and good. If someone is acting out their feelings, like screaming, yelling, fighting, hitting, that's a huge red flag right there. Now, whether it's your personal life or your business life, is that something you really want to continue to engage in? And if they're not willing to get help, then you need to look at, is this something I'm willing to live with? I've told the story of Jenny and Jimmy, and I'll tell that story shortly. Nikki says, but red flags get missed or ignored. Yes, it is true that they can get missed or ignored. So that's why it's really important for the more that you have done your own work and you're working on yourself, or you're trusting yourself, you're trusting your gut, you start being able to have the awareness, oh, that's a red flag. So it's easier not to miss it. But part of what happens in the journey of healing is the more you heal, the more aware, the more you learn what is tolerable, what's not tolerable, what's not okay, what's like your limit, your bottom line of no, unacceptable behavior. No, no, no. So this is about you, again, coming back to you learning your limits, you're learning your boundaries, and you're learning what's acceptable, what's not acceptable in your life, in your business, so that you become aware of the red flags. If you're ignoring them, that is something that's another piece that needs to be worked through on your part. See, again, coming back to this is a lot of relationships. Bottom line starts with the best relationship with yourself. And here's the thing, again, it's a journey. It's not a destination. It's all part of the journey, and the journey of healing. So when someone, this is more unhealthy relationships, so that you really get a clear understanding. When you expect someone to be what you want, or do what you want, or always do what you want, that's a red flag for you to look at. Are you doing that behavior? Or is the other person making these expectations of you? It has to be your way, their way, or the highway. And if they don't accept, if there's not this negotiation or support, or you get to really work things out, and it's always their way, and if it's not their way, then they get manipulative or controlling, that's something for you to be aware of. And constant controlling and unwilling to hear what you want goes along with all of what I just said. So, and then there's control and manipulation, and when there's control and manipulation, huge red flag. Now again, if the person is willing to work on themselves, and if they're willing to see what your and hear your feelings, then there's potential for the relationship to ultimately work. But if they're not willing, then that's a huge red flag. Abuse of power, emotional abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, any kind of abuse. There's religious abuse, cultural abuse, there's all different kinds. And in relationships, it's really looking at that abuse of power and not respecting. There's no respect. There's no respect, not a good relationship. No trust, not a good relationship. You're not able to be yourself. Now, this is really interesting, because what happens with this is, if you're not able to really be yourself, if you don't feel safe, like what I was talking about, if you don't feel safe to be you, how can you really allow yourself to be more intimate, whether it's a friendship or a partnership with the other person, if you're not feeling safe? So that's really something for you to look at. And now this is interesting. If there's not enough separation, and what I mean by that is, there are some relationships and some people that what we call the codependency, and they do everything together. Everything's together. It's like what we call that clinical enmeshed. And if there is an enmeshment where they're always together, always doing things, they're not really doing things with other people, because it's all about just them and there's no other people involved. That's a red flag to look at. And then it's looking at if there's any intimacy. If there's little or no intimacy, then you need to look at, is this a relationship that is really working for you? So those are the red flags in unhealthy relationships. And we have some questions coming in. So Misty says that journey can be ongoing. You bet. The journey of self-discovery, the journey of creating healthy relationships, the journey of having a better partnership or better friendships is always ongoing. And the journey to loving yourself and to having a better relationship with yourself so that you can have a better relationship with others is definitely an important, crucial, essential part of the journey. And Anastasia asks, those are the bad things, correct? Yes. Yes, those are the bad things. Yes, those are the unhealthy parts of an unhealthy relationship to be on the lookout for. So, okay, thank you. And then Anastasia asks, can trust be mended? Okay. So, yes, trust can be mended, but it will take time. So what happens, and here's the thing, the person where the trust was broken or if both partners have trust broken, it's going to take time to repair it. And both people must be willing to say, I want to repair this. I want to make this better. I want this to work. And so, yes, it can be mended. And what also can happen in couples therapy, what happens is where you can have no trust. And as the couple heals, the trust grows. And so, yes, the trust can be mended over time. Now, it all depends on the type of relationship. If it's a friendship, you may say, I don't know if I really want to continue this friendship. If it's a close friendship or a family or a relative, you may want to continue to work on letting that trust regrow. If it's a business relationship, then you need to look at, is that really somebody you want to work with or be in business? Very often in business, once the trust is broken, it's over. So again, it depends on the relationship. Yes, it can be mended, and that will take time to remend. And what can happen is you can actually end up having a closer relationship as the trust is mended and as the trust grows. So, yes. Okay, so let's talk about a healthy relationship. And the first word on my list is trust. So, yes, you want to have trust, and yes, trust can be mended, but it will take time. You want there to be honesty, and honesty with the people in your life is crucial. And the more honest you are, the more the relationship can thrive. If there's certain lies or certain things that happen, that can actually break trust. And so honesty is really important. Respect for each other. That's really crucial, having that mutual respect. And the things that I'm talking about are personal, professional, they're in every area of your life, whether it's personal, professional, business, all important across the board. And each person takes responsibility for themselves. Now, obviously, if you're a mother of children under 18, then you're responsible for them. But what you want to be doing is helping your children start, as they grow, to start take more and more responsibility for themselves. So you're teaching them that responsibility. And ultimately, as adults, you want to make sure that you're not overdoing or overgiving for the other person, taking too much care of the other person. That's part of the codependency. You want to make sure that there's an even balance in the relationship. And like I said, each person takes responsibility for themselves. And you want a family, friend, partner, business associate, colleague, and obviously clients. You want to be able to hear the needs and wants of the person, and you want to be able for them to hear your needs. Now, obviously, with a client, it's a different kind of relationship, but with other relationships, you want to be able to have mutual, where you both hear each other. And ideally, and this is all relationships across the board, you want to have a win-win for both. That is across the board. All relationships need boundaries. Every single, no matter what area of your life, all relationships need boundaries. They need to be heard and they need to be honored. really essential and important. Mickey asks, why do people continue to lie after they have been called out, even though there was no reason to lie in the first place? So you may be talking about a person who may be a pathological liar. You may be talking about a person who feels like, see, a lot of times when people lie, and you can even look at it in your own life, that when you lie, on some level you're protecting yourself. You're protecting yourself, and even if you think you're protecting the other person, you're protecting your ability to feel loved, and so that you don't lose them or you're not getting rejected by them. So on some level there's a personal reason why you may lie. Okay, now when there's a pathological, they lie because that was the way they lived when they grew up. And what happens is it becomes a habit, a pattern. And some people are, if they're pathological liars, they don't know how to not lie. So I guess it's really for you to look at, if the person doesn't know how to tell the truth, is that something? Okay, so he just lies for the thrill of getting caught. Well, if there's definitely some kind of sabotaging pattern, some type of behavior that he is getting those needs met through the lying. And again, for you, it's about saying, is that what you want in your life? And are you willing to? Like, if the relationship has other advantages and it's not that big a deal for you, then you may not care. But if it is a big deal for you, then like you have to look at what feels good, what doesn't feel good in the relationship. And obviously on some level that need to get caught. And there's another level of that is, and I'm hypothetically, because I don't know who you're talking about, but hypothetically, if he's doing it for the thrill of getting caught, what does that mean for him? Is it because he wants to be loved no matter what, or he likes the excitement? So there's many different pieces of possibilities. And then you have to look at what feels good to you. And to remember, in a healthy relationship, you're each whole separate individuals with your own interests and also shared interests. So you want each of you to have your own interests, and then you want to come together with those shared interests, and so that you have time to share and connect. You want to feel safe and loved by the other person, and whatever kind of relationship it is. You want to be there to support each other in healing those wounds. And in really healthy relationships, what happens is that you end up helping each other to heal those childhood wounds. So it's a way for healing to happen instead of rewounding, because very often if the subconscious pattern, you can have rewounding instead of the healing. So again, it's important to look at the relationship. And then you support each other, not take care of each other. You acknowledge each other and praise each other. You see the best in each other. There's healthy communication. And when issues arise, you're able to process it and then be able to be seen and heard and feel seen and heard by the other person. So you do your part and they do their part in being able to process whatever's triggering and whatever issues come up. That's healthy conflict resolution. There's a balance between connecting with others, connecting with self, being with a partner, being with friends, all of that balanced of healthy giving and receiving. And when you do your work, relationships can transform and you can become a role model for the other person. Now, in business, you are the role model for the client, and you're a part of that role model. So, and if it's a colleague, then you want to have that mutual respect, that mutual collaboration, and really support each other in your businesses. So let's talk a little bit about, and before we go on, I want to mention that you can download the meditation, which can really help you clear your energy, connect you more deeply, and help you to really make better decisions, better personal decisions, business decisions, as you calm down and tune into your inner wisdom. So you want to go to inspiredandempoweredliving.com, the name of the show, inspiredandempoweredliving.com /meditation. MEDITATION. And Rebel, can you put the link up, please? And also in the chat as well. Again, for those of you on the podcast, inspiredandempoweredliving.com /meditation, MEDITATION, and the name of the show.com /meditation. And you can download it for the meditation. You can use the PDF if you want to talk yourself through it. And it can be a really valuable asset as you calm yourself down to really understand more what's going on for you in your relationships and in your life and in your business. So let's talk a little bit more about the relationship with yourself. Self-worth. So, and we were talking about a lot of these the last week or two, but I kind of really want to just go over them again. When you're talking about self-worth, do you value your time? And we were talking about last week about taking time for yourself. And do you value your time? Like, for example, I used to be in a relationship with this person, this woman, and she, a friend of mine, I'll call her Dorothy. And Dorothy she would be a half an hour late whenever. And it didn't feel good to me. I wasn't valuing my time. And finally, well, that relationship ended up ending. So that was the end of, because I was valuing myself and my time. But it was a lot of other things as well. I knew it wasn't a healthy relationship. And I knew that, when I said about how with relationships, you want the relationship to be the best version of yourself. And what happens is when it's an unhealthy relationship, one of the ways that you can start looking at your relationship is, do you feel more alone because I have, and this is all personal too, that I've experienced in my own life, where I felt more alone in a bad relationship than I did when being alone. And so if that is happening for you, that's something for you to look at and really support you in. And that's about valuing yourself. Do you feel like you need to over-explain or over-justify yourself? Do you discount your services? And that's for you, those of you in business. I mean, are you discounting it so that you're not really getting paid? You're not allowing yourself to have that self-worth. All of you, do you stay silent to avoid conflict? And that's a self-worth issue. If you're staying silent to avoid conflict, then that is something that needs healing within you. So what happens is that can lead to undercharging, burnout in business, even in life. If you're not doing the self-valuing, you're going to get burnt out. And you're not able to give the way you want to give or love the way you want to love if you're too busy feeling burnt out or angry or frustrated or resentful. Those are all warning signs that something's off. And then, of course, people pleasing. So, and then another thing to ask yourself, self-trust. And we were talking about that earlier. Do you override your intuition? And these are all questions to ask yourself, to really look at your relationships and your relationship to yourself. Because again, bottom line, your relationship with yourself is going to determine the quality of your relationships with others. Do you ignore red flags? Or do you miss them, as we were talking about before? And so it's learning to really become more aware of the red flags. And do you second guess your decisions? Are you not trusting yourself? Are you in the self-doubt? That's all part of that self-trust. And then there's the self-respect. The self-respect is, do you tolerate behavior that you wouldn't tolerate in others? And if that is, if that's happening, then you need to look at, how are you respecting yourself? And do you say yes when you really mean no? Another way that is really important that you're not respecting yourself. So it's about really saying no when you need to say no. That's self-respect. That's self-care. And not tolerating, like I was talking about before, that being late a half an hour, 45 minutes. I mean, it was crazy. And I would be really upset and angry. And finally, the behavior just became way too much. That was part of the pattern. And I finally had to say no more. So that is really, to sum it up, we talked a lot about that the bottom line is the healthy relationship with others starts with the relationship with yourself. And it's really going to be important for you to really start being able to self-trust, self-respect, self-honoring, self-love, and to continue on that journey. And then we also talked about, what does an unhealthy relationship look like? And what does a healthy relationship look like? So we talked about that. And next week, we're going to talk more about boundaries and communication in your life, in your business, how to say no without guilt, how to address conflict calmly, how to protect your energy while staying open hearted, and how to create those boundaries in all areas of your life, and how to create the boundaries to increase your income. So stay tuned for more inspired and empowered living. Misty says one can only put with so much. That is true. Thank you, Misty. And so join us next week for more inspired and empowered living on W4WN, talk4tv.com, my YouTube channel. And then our podcasts are heard on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Pandora, Apple, Amazon, and many more. And I am wishing you all an inspired and empowered day, an inspired and empowered night, and an inspired and empowered week. Have a great one, everybody. Bye for now.